So thank you, everybody, and thank you for the introduction. So just a little bit about who we are, because not everybody has heard of IPONWEB. We are an engineering company. We build ad platforms and ad trading ecosystems. We've been doing it for about 14 different years. A few of our customers are Dish in the United States, which related to the topic at hand. Dish in the United States, which is a satellite provider. We worked with them to make their digital inventory or their traditional linear inventory available to digital buyers, translating between those two worlds. TrustX, which is a set of premium publishers, again in the United States, bringing together and really working together as a cooperative to represent, understand the value of, and package their own inventory, and they run their own sales on that platform that we run as a partner with them. And MCN in Australia. So MCN's a sales house for Foxtel, and we worked with them to bring their smart hub to market, where they're able to provide all of their available inventory to their buyers. So it's across defining what you have, looking at how do you plan and manage all of that, how do you execute, and then how do you measure what happened. So a lot of this, you know, as I sit through the various talks here, a lot of the themes are recurrent, whether you're looking at it from a content perspective, you're looking at it from a size of building an OTT platform that's completely subscription driven, or you're looking at ad-supported stuff, which is the focus here. It's about audience. How do you understand who your audience is? In the case of ad-supported, I think one thing that gets overlooked that was intrinsic in the traditional media world was that your audience is the advertiser, or your customer is the advertiser. Yes, you have to have content that compels, brings people to the platform. You need to understand that, and we've heard a lot about the different ways that people have done very interesting work and very meaningful work in driving that forward. Well, on the same hand, the challenge remains for this transition from a linear broadcast model, driving the vast majority of revenue for very large companies that are part of the media ecosystem in the creation of content. Well, they need to understand their audience from the perspective of what do the advertisers want, how does that overlap with the viewership, that's informed by data. That is now distributed and available on many, many, many different platforms, and not just in terms of the media consumption, but in terms of who is interested in buying your advertising. And then there has to be a return on that investment, and it can't just be anecdotal that TV works, which we're going to get into next, but why does it work? Who does it work for? How does it work for this particular audience brand consumer model? So advertisers want the people that are relevant to them, and they have the same expectations that consumers do, is that this is an increasingly better product for their particular needs, right? So if you look at the value of TV, and again, from an advertising perspective, and you're looking with companies that have established a very safe environment, a very immersive environment. It's the whole screen all of the time. It's not some tiny percentage of some number of microseconds that it scrolls by in the feed. And the science behind it and the theories behind it actually support this. So people knew that TV performed, but now there's data to back it up. And as we move to an addressable environment or an over-the-top environment, there's increasing amounts of data that allow you to show the specific effectiveness of advertising for a particular user and for a particular advertiser. So there's a lot of analytics. People have amazing dashboards. You can target. You can introduce new formats. There's a lot of opportunity for innovation that is taking place in this transition. So there's a lot going for TV as an ad-supported medium. But the challenge is the attention of the advertiser in this case, but it's certainly directly related to the attention that the viewers have for the content, is what the currency is. It's, are you engaging with, are you able to provide the scale, the relevance of the audience? Is this an efficient buy relative to the performance? It's not an absolute price, it's a relative price to a specific advertiser. So just as viewers expect value for what they're getting, well, the media owners expect value, or the advertisers expect value for access to that audience, right? So you have traditional things like clash management and other things, but you're moving from a mass media that is basically mass at all respects to kind of mass personalization. What is the volume and scale and reach that TV has traditionally delivered to advertisers in a way that makes sense that's personalized, and you don't have to do all of the work because now it's fragmented. It's not that I can go to one or two broadcasters, understand their audience, they have great insight, great analytics, fine, now I have to deal with many, many, many people. So this is how things are shifting, and it's a very meaningful way. So this gets manifest in aggregation models and all kinds of commoditization of different parts of the value chain. But fundamentally what is flipped is that TV historically has been a supply-driven business. So you had the good supply, you had the great content, therefore people came to you. Well, you're no longer competing simply for content, you're competing for attention. So the business model has fundamentally changed from supply constrained to demand constrained. You want access to the audience, and the advertiser wants access to the audience. And while they appreciate the content, from an advertising perspective, they need to know it's the audience that's interesting them, and you have to make it as easy as possible, and their expectations will continue to increase over time. As we meet with different broadcasters and technology companies, one of the things that comes up, and this has started several years ago, advertisers want to buy it like they buy on Facebook. They want 1, 2, 3 steps. They don't want to have to do weeks and weeks of research and back and forth. Yes, it's traded primarily through I/O still. And yes, this is where things are moving, but that is the expectation. It's easy to buy, and it's relevant, and the value is there for them as an advertiser. So the data allows you to inform and measure that value. So, touched on several of these things. You have a lot of different systems to tie together, internally and externally. We'll just stick with kind of inside of almost any organization has grown. There's very few new greenfield large media companies that are ad supported. So you have a lot of things to tie together. You have to coexist with the traditional buying models that exist that deliver a tremendous amount of value for advertisers, both performance and brand. But those tools have to evolve, and you have to have different models, different sales approaches. It requires very, very different skill sets, one of the things that's common across all of this. The creative process often gets overlooked, but it becomes very key, particularly for people coming from a digital side. There is certain expectations, not just in the quality of the content, but its relevance in the context that it has to operate in many cases in a regulated environment that they're not used to. And in the end, this is all tied together with fragmentation, right? So this creates opportunity, but it's also many pitfalls can arise. So what is that opportunity? How does this come together? You've changed your business model. You've gone from basically a B2B model to much more of a B2C model if you're going to pursue direct consumer. And you will hear, and it's a buzzword compliant, you definitely have direct consumer advertisers, if not becoming the majority of your buyers, they relate to, and one of the things someone mentioned previously was the experience of actually getting out there and building a direct relationship with your new buyers is tremendously informative in terms of what actually happens and what actually goes on. Yes, you need to have data systems to support that, to feed back into the platform so that you can understand and analyze and come up with the trends. But you need to have actual engagement. So that's a fundamental change that many organizations are undertaking. But the result is manifest in many of the consumer services that people are used to reaching through social media or social media advertising. So these expectations are there. There's not much you can do to change it, whether you like it or not. It's not a question of working with a particular provider. It's a question of how do you best satisfy and what are you most uniquely positioned to do. You don't have to become a Netflix. You don't have to become anyone else. Who are you and what is your value proposition? Do you have the systems? Do you have the people? Do you have the understanding to go? So from a mindset of I'm now more directly engaging. If I want to succeed, the opportunity is upon each individual in each company to go out there and do that. And then who do you work with? How do you get that data? How do you get that insight? How do you change the cadence of things? Because it's moving in that direction. Everybody knows it's moving in that direction. But the real peril is just kind of keep doing things and hoping you'll catch up later. This is an ongoing process. So we see this across a lot of different markets. We see a lot of opportunity in the space. There's tremendous value in television, but there's fundamental shifts underway that hopefully others will get into the details of. So thank you.